Okay, so we're talking Strategic Bitcoin Reserve, SBR. I want to start off with a little bit of background. We have two of Congress's foremost leaders on digital asset policy. Congressman Begich, you're an early holder of Bitcoin, and Whip Emmer, you've been leading on these issues for years now, before it was popular or cool to do so. So I'd like to hear from both of you, starting with Whip Emmer. What was your aha moment with Bitcoin? What made you really take the leap from, hey, this is cool and interesting, to we're going to legislate on this?
Well, there's a couple of things. First, thank you for your leadership, and thanks for everybody that's participating in this conference. Isn't it amazing how far you have all come, how far we've all come in such a short period of time? It feels like yesterday that it started picking up, but I've been involved in this now for 9+ years. And I won't go back through all the history. You know, Landon Zinda, who's now with Treasury, who was working with me, gave me a book, Age of Cryptocurrency, all that. No, what really happened to me was reading the story and understanding that what started in 2008 with a white paper from someone who might be here by the name of Satoshi, that we will never know, was the beginning of the 21st century financial system. And for me, why was it important? Because it related to the politics that I grew up with. We've got this two-party system that it used to be that one party believed, and by the way, this switches, so I'm not going to use the identities of the party. You can figure out for yourself, because they do switch over time. They tend to believe the opposite of what they believed before 50 years later. So there's one party that typically believes that individuals have the best solution. There's another party that think, well, we can't trust ourselves, so we've got to have more government involvement to make sure that we regulate and protect ourselves. For me, I believe in individuals' right to self-determine, and that's what excited me about this. We've been fighting so hard the last 6 or 7 years. I mean, you brought up off stage the prohibition on central bank digital currencies, which I remember well, I'll take you back, because we'll do the politics quick and give it to the guy who's the expert, Begich. But you should know this, that when I finally got Jeb Hensarling to have a crypto hearing in the U.S. House of Representatives Financial Services Committee, it was amazing to me to come in and sit down and listen to Republicans and Democrats sound exactly the same. Oh, this is Silk Road. This is where all the drug dealers and all the bad guys hang out. It's like, you guys don't have any concept of what this really is. Fast forward, then we think we're making progress. In the community probably did it more than we did. There was, I think it was 2019, there was a infrastructure bill over on the Senate side that added a misguided tax on software developers. I mean, it was ridiculous. But that was the beginning, because that's what really started the political growth of this movement. Because you guys, whether some of you are in the room or some are watching, rained down on Washington, and in particular on the Senate, up to 30,000 touches a day that week after this thing was proposed. And what you did is you got a lot of older, you know, there's some, what do we say, walkers and oxygen tanks on the other side of the building. You got a lot of those guys waking up going, oh my goodness, this is a large group of people out there. Fast forward, we had the first Trump administration, which was friendly. We had friendly people there, right? But we didn't have all the friendly that we needed to move things. They just hadn't bought in fully. Bring in the Biden administration. We thought maybe we were going to get some movement. Guess what? They were worse. Gary Gensler, God bless the election system. Bye-bye, Gary. Bye-bye. Gary Gensler, the senator from Massachusetts who shall not be named. These people were the ones that were controlling it for the last 4 years. Last November, I believe the whole community came of age, because this is not a Republican or Democrat thing. This is an American thing, and we are viciously protective of that. I know you heard from our friends Richie Torres and Josh Gottheimer earlier. I mean, we believe this is more than about your political persuasion or the jersey that you put on in Congress, and it can't be about that. So what happened was this community woke up and said, wait a second, we got to get their attention. And you guys are not supporting what you did last fall is you didn't support people based on what party they represented. You supported them based on, do they agree with where I think we should go or don't they? If you don't agree, we're going to find people who do. And you sent the strongest message possible. And then I'll finish with this. You also elected a president that is, Donald Trump he is in for innovation and crypto. And our friend J.D. Vance, the vice president, when they picked him, I was at the convention and I looked at him, I said, well, I actually like you for a different reason, J.D. You're going to be the first presidential or vice presidential candidate in the history of this country to have actually owned Bitcoin. So we've come of age. Everybody has. God bless you for being here and engaging, because we got to get this stuff into law now, which is where my colleague Nick Begich really comes in.
So this is a perfect segue, right? The administration laid out 3 primary objectives with regard to digital asset policy. There's stablecoin legislation, market structure legislation, and then the strategic Bitcoin reserve. So again, longtime holder of Bitcoin, I believe it was 2011?
2013.
2013, excuse me. And a lot of people would lie about that, by the way, so good on you. What was your aha moment? And then ultimately, over a decade later, what made you want to codify the executive order in March that established a strategic Bitcoin reserve? What made you lead on the Bitcoin Act in the House?
It's a good question. So I got involved in January of 2013. I remember my seminal moment with respect to Bitcoin came in November of 2012. I was reading a blog post on slash.org. So I don't know how many tech nerds we've got in the audience today, but slash.org, being a pretty significant tech blog at that time, was talking about the upcoming halvening. And I was very interested in learning more about Bitcoin, because what fascinated me about this asset class was it was a divorcing of money from the state. It was privately issued money. We've seen that before in our nation's history. We've seen that with gold reserves and the way that they were treated over time until relatively recently. And so it was very interesting to see this creation of what we now consider digital gold. And so I got involved. I bought some Bitcoin on the Mt. Gox exchange. Unfortunately, I still have some of that. Unfortunately, I lost about 440 Bitcoin when they went under. It's pretty significant today. But nevertheless, I was fascinated by it, continue to be fascinated by it, and I thought, and this predates my involvement in politics, but my concern at that time and my concern today was that the discipline required by not only the members of Congress, but also the public to actually achieve a balanced budget scenario where we don't see continued accumulated debt through deficit spending. I just didn't see the discipline there. And so I thought, this is an insurance policy for potentially for the federal government, in the same way that gold is an insurance policy for the federal government. And we see China and others continuing to accumulate gold, and now we're seeing reserves that include Bitcoin from not just El Salvador, but Czech Republic and a number of other nations that are seriously looking at this as a way to diversify the reserve portion of their national balance sheet. And I think it's important for the United States to do that. This is something that I came to Congress wanting to do, and it's been great to partner with Senator Lummis on the Bitcoin Act, introducing this as the lead in the House. We've got some other priorities right now with respect to market structure and stablecoin bills that need to come through, but I'm very hopeful that after those are completed, we can turn the focus toward the Bitcoin Act and start having a serious discussion about why it's important for the United States to have a diversified reserves balance sheet that includes Bitcoin.
So, Whip Emmer, Representative Begich just made the case for Bitcoin as digital gold. Conceptually, where are you at in terms of the U.S. government owns gold, right? Do you think the U.S. government should own Bitcoin? And are you willing to have that conversation, at least, in the House that Representative Begich just called for?
I totally agree, and I think our president more than agrees, which is why he signed that executive order on March 6th. It's interesting. There's a certain person that's still involved in government that I was sitting down with a couple summers ago for breakfast, and this person brought up crypto to me and said that's kind of like wampum. Now, I bit my lip because what I wanted to say to him is, I think we bought the state of New York with wampum, right? It's not about what it is, it's what it does. And yes, I think the U.S. should be holding it. I don't know that we should be spending tax dollars to get it. I think Nick and Cynthia have been working on this issue, but it's very important to the future of this country. Plus, Nick pointed out, we've got the Genius Act, which God bless Bill Hagerty in the Senate for getting that done and getting it out. That'll be addressed. I believe our Speaker's plan is to have it addressed on the House floor the week of July 7th. The issue that we're having in the House, you may have heard of it. These are priorities. These are the President's priorities, which we're going to get his priorities done. But there's this big, bad, beautiful bill that we've got to get done first. So that's kind of taking all the focus. But a lot of this crypto, I think the Speaker may make, the Speaker and the Leader might make July 7th Crypto Week in the House.
Congressman Begich, could you talk a little bit about the mechanics? So Whip Emmer mentioned, not sure if we should be spending taxpayer dollars, right, to buy Bitcoin. Can you talk about how the Bitcoin Act actually works? Where does the money come from? Are we just, speculating on Bitcoin and throwing taxpayer dollars?
It's a great question. So we do not spend taxpayer dollars on Bitcoin through the Bitcoin Act. So there are several mechanisms available for the acquisition of Bitcoin. The goal is to build a strategic reserve of 1 million Bitcoin over the 5 years that follow the Bitcoin Act's passage. Currently, we've got around 200,000 Bitcoin, it's believed, from civil asset forfeitures, lawful seizures of Bitcoin. And so the Act would set out some mechanisms in addition to continuing normal seizures of Bitcoin that would occur over time to acquire Bitcoin. One of those is taking a look at the Exchange Stabilization Fund, which is a fund that is actually overfunded to the tune of about $40 billion. That fund is utilized to maintain the value of the dollar relative to other currencies. It includes actual discretion for purchasing gold as well. And so this would add Bitcoin as one of the assets that would be available for purchase under the Exchange Stabilization Fund. So that's one. Two, the Federal Reserve remittances that come from the Federal Reserve that exceed $6 billion would be available at the discretion of the Secretary of the Treasury for the acquisition of Bitcoin. And then finally, we have gold certificates that have been issued against dollars. $42 is the marked price, and it's never been updated. It's never been updated to the current market price. Of course, gold is trading north of $3,000. And so this would allow for additional issuance that would more appropriately and more currently mark to market our gold reserves and allow those for the purchase of Bitcoin. So no tax dollars used for the acquisition of Bitcoin, and I think that is an important point. You really don't want to tax people and then use those tax dollars to acquire an asset like this.
Nick, did you like that setup? I mean, what these people don't know, Grant, is that was the first thing that I went to Nick and said, hey, I love this, but I don't believe in this. And he gave me exactly what he just gave all of you.
That was awesome. And I believe the 1 million Bitcoin is roughly 5% of all Bitcoin that will ever exist, which is more or less parallel to the U.S. government owning roughly 5% of the world's gold supply, right? So again, another parallel to digital gold. But look, we're here to talk about legislative prospects. We talked about the ordering. Bipartisanship has been a consistent theme of this conference for all the years it's been running. It's a key component of our organization, the work that we're doing, and Whip Emmer, it's a key component of all the work that you've been doing over the last many years on these issues. So can you talk about perhaps the Congressional Crypto Caucus, or just more broadly, like how do you get more people on board to these ideas, and how do you ensure that it remains nonpartisan?
Well, first off, nonpartisan is the key. Those of you that know me know that ever since I started this, I don't like it when people use the term bipartisan, because bipartisan immediately tells you there are these people and there are those people. This is not that kind of an issue, and we've got to be very protective of the fact that this is neither them or those, it's all of us, right? And I think the more we do that, the more you can cut through the nonsense that Nick and I get to deal with, that Richie and Josh get to deal with, where people start putting on their jerseys and getting all territorial and trying to leverage this against that. That's why the community is so important. There's two things before I get to the caucus that are big, and I think Nick would agree with me. One is you've got to have a industry. If I can throw the whole digital asset community into an industry definition, the industry has to be involved, has to have their voices being heard. They have to be out there and flexing their muscles so people know who you are and why you're so important. Then the other key, which we found out the last 4 years, is you've got to have a digital asset-friendly administration. You've got to have a president, a vice president, a cabinet that is totally open to innovation and new ideas to allow us to bring the United States of America into the 21st century. Then I think it's really important at the legislative level. I mean, I joined the blockchain caucus probably a decade or more ago, and I always laugh because I walked in, the co-chairs of the blockchain caucus, which was the original caucus, was the biggest political odd couple I'd ever seen in my life. It was Jared Polis, who's now the governor of Colorado, and Mick Mulvaney. These two guys could not have been more different, and yet this was something that they were both completely unified on and pushing. So what Richie Torres, who I think the world of, and I did recently, is we created the Crypto Caucus. Nick's a member. Right now we've got 18 members. The goal of this is to maintain that nonpartisan approach, put together a group of members that are going to vote in block, right? The idea is if it's good for the community, we're all voting together. Doesn't matter what who elected you as a Republican or a Democrat, we don't care. If it's bad for the community, the goal is we have the conversation and we make sure we all vote against it and protect the community. So I'm kind of excited about it. It's just begun. And when you hear people like Begich, who's not even on the Financial Services Committee, he really should be, but I get it. He's got some priorities that come from a big state of Alaska. We are so lucky to benefit from that type of knowledge within this group. I mean, Richie Torres, he's just like a breath of fresh air. I laugh, though, because our politics, it's funny, Ro Khanna, Tom Emmer working together. Wow, that's interesting, isn't it? But that shows you it is not a partisan issue, and that's the goal of this caucus.
Congressman Begich, I got to let these people out for lunch, but I want you to close this out. Bipartisanship or nonpartisanship of the Bitcoin Act, what is the path there? Are you trying to get Democratic co-sponsors? Like, what is the path forward here?
Absolutely. We're looking for anyone who wants to come in, and this is where we need your help, and that we need the community to be reaching out to all members of Congress. And we've been fortunate to pick up some really good co-sponsorships, but the more co-sponsorships we can bring onto this bill, particularly because we've got a lot of Republicans right now, we want to get some Democrats on board, it sends a signal to committee leadership that this is something that has the potential to pass into law. That's really important. Those are huge signals. So reach out to your members. Wherever you're from in the country, reach out to them, reach out to their offices, tell them how important it is for us to pass the Bitcoin Act. This sends the right signal, and we're doing that, of course, and the Bitcoin Policy Institute's been doing a fantastic job of being evangelists on the Hill with respect to this bill, its component parts, why it's so important. You know, we like to talk about Bitcoin as though it's somehow separate from the rest of the economy. Bitcoin really is becoming an asset class that represents the economy. I can't tell you how thrilled I was the first time I was on a plane, actually, coming back from an international trip, and I'm watching Bloomberg. It was the first time I saw Bitcoin show up in the ticker, and I knew at that moment we had crossed over into the financial community, and it had been real. And now every day when I turn Bloomberg on in the morning, there's Bitcoin, right? That's a big deal, but it's still confined to a subset of the rest of the economy. We need to make sure that it crosses over. This act helps us do that. I think it's very important. Reach out to your members of Congress. Make sure that they understand how important it is to you so that we can get this through to the finish line.
Whip Emmer, Congressman Begich, thank you so much for your time. Thank you for being here.